What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is the Fourth and Fantasy Podcast. My name's Meek. I'm across the desk with my co-host Wu.
How we doing?
What's going on today, brother?
I'm willing to say this might be a hot take. This might be the best time of the year. Hear me out.
Okay, I'm listening.
We're in the Northeast. We're here in Rhode Island. The winters are terrible. Some of the most miserable days ever. Now it's March. Sun's coming out. We've had some 50, 60-degree weather, which feels like summertime.
The tease is
here. I like to golf. Golf season's around the corner. This is a football podcast, but March Madness is here.
I respect that.
I'm repping the Huskies today. No, I'm not a bandwagon. I'll start naming players you never even heard of.
Don't come from them in the comments, please.
Oh my God, that's a battle you don't want to go against. But I'm willing to say this might be the best time of the year.
All
and
right.
Plus NFL draft, combine. We're talking about rookies. I just think there's too many good things going on now.
What else is there? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. We're here to give you episode 11 of the Fourth and Fantasy Podcast. We're just having a great time, chugging along and throwing out episodes. We've hit 430 plus plays across Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. That is because of you, the people who watch, the people who listen.
Goats.
We love you. We love you. Make sure you're following us on our socials at Fourth and Fantasy Pod, Instagram and TikTok at Fourth and Fantasy, YouTube Fourth and Fantasy. Please make sure you give us a like, follow, share, leave a comment. Because you never know, you might see yourself on the show.
Yep.
We're gonna roll right in. Woo. Quick question of the day. I titled this one "Overrated." What players in a dynasty startup do you feel like their value is being overrated? I'll kick it to you first.
Yeah, I really like this question because when you're in a draft, we use Sleeper, and it has all the ADPs ranked out, and sometimes you sit there and you're kind of basing things off of ADP ranking, but that's what other people are thinking, not necessarily what you are. Mm-hmm. So sometimes you see people, being drafted too high, too low, depending on how you feel about the player. So I like this question. I've got two for you. My first one's going to be Chase Brown. He's going as the RB15, pick 58. And I'm going to base it. I'm not saying this because of his talent. I think he's a great running back. My thing is he was a 5th-round pick. He's on an elite offense in Cincinnati. I think any day of the week, if they want to, change, that look at the running back position, let's say it's this draft, they want to take a shot on, this loaded class. Like they are basically what I'm trying to say is they are not tied to this guy in any way. So they could easily cut ties or, lower his production. And, when he's in a dynasty draft, you need to be thinking about the future. And I'm not sure what that long-term view is on Chase Brown, from the Bengals.
Yeah, I think the question for him is, can he be that every down back? And I don't think he can be now, and that's not a knock on him as a player. You know what I mean? I think he's a great pass catcher, and when it came down to it last year, he stepped into that every down role.
Yeah, he was great last year.
But I think I'm on the boat with you. Like, this is a loaded rookie class, and I think you were the one who mentioned it in our last episode when we were talking about running backs, and I just kept thinking about it. Was like someone like Quinshawn Judkins had gone there, and then the combo of him with Chase Brown would be so elite, and then you're not straining Chase Brown, to do everything.
Exactly. And then my second one, Zach, cover your ears. George Pickens, he's going as the wide receiver.
Oh.
Yeah, sorry, man. We have this debate all the time, but just hear me out. He's going as the wide receiver 29, pick 74. I had his. I was looking at his sleeper profile earlier. I want to pull it up again just to double check myself, but I was looking at his PPR finishes, and they are not as high as you would think they would be for, how much attention this guy gets. I'm pulling it up as we speak, but now the Steelers trade for DK Metcalf. That's another mouth that needs to be fed, and they currently do not have a quarterback.
No, they do not.
Steelers fans, you better
hold on. They signed Mason Rudolph today.
Oh, my bad. Playoffs right now. But no, all seriousness, like Steelers fans, you better hope that they go out and get Aaron Rodgers, because otherwise both of these receivers are screwed. More specifically George Pickens. Last year he was the wide receiver 42 in PPR. Year before, wide receiver 30, and in 2022 he's a wide receiver 39. So to me, that's just I don't see the upside. Listen, crazy hands, make some great highlight plays, but he was the guy on these teams. Sure, you had Russell Wilson, not the QB he once was.
Right.
But I don't know what their plan is at quarterback. and especially because we don't even know who it is for next year, like major issues for me. And there was a few names I was looking at the ADPs, around there. There's Chuba Hubbard, one that I remember specifically. There's just other names, around where he's being drafted that I like way more, not even just in the wide receiver position.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have two for you as well. My first one is going to be Mr. James Cook, running back out of Buffalo. Now, listen, I get it. He had a phenomenal third season. He had monstrous. He had 16 touchdowns, and I think that is where I'm going to start my case of him being overrated. He had 16 touchdowns. We always talk about how touchdowns are not a sticky stat, and you cannot rely on them for continuation. So where he's being drafted, he's being drafted as the running back 8. Running back 10, pick 49. And I look at like the other running backs that are below him, and I would much rather have Omarion Hampton, regardless of where he's going. I'd much rather have Josh Jacobs, who has a stable role in that offense. It just feels to me that that year he just had was like a fluke season. You know what I mean? Because all right, the year before he had more rushing yards and had 2 touchdowns. You know what I mean? So let's just cut that in half, and he's not worth the value. So I guess my advice for everyone is don't get hyped off of a high touchdown season, because that's not something that's predictable. Now, if James Cook was someone who had like 1,500 yards and like 3 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns, that's fine, because the yardage is there, the usage is there. But just don't get hyped over the touchdowns.
Yeah, and to have 16 touchdowns, and I believe he finished as the running back 8. Like if I'm seeing a guy who has 16 touchdowns as a running back, I'm thinking they're at least top 5.
Yeah,
so that's a problem.
Yeah, and my second one is Bucky Irving, and I hate to rain on the parade, Woo, but
it's my keeper, man.
He is going. Did you know he's going as the running back 7?
No, I was unaware.
I just talked about James Cook as being overrated. I think I would rather have James Cook than Bucky Irving. Hear me out. He had an amazing rookie second half, and I'm not even going to say rookie season. It was a second half rookie season. You know what I mean? So we can say he's proven, but he's proven it only for half a year. He's 5'10", 195 pounds. He's a smaller back, and he's already shown you that he's got durability issues. I think about the Carolina game when he's wrapped up like a mummy and hardly is limping to the finish of the game. Things change. We also talk about, I think he was a 4th round pick.
Yep. Capital issues.
He's definitely the guy going into next season, but I question if he starts to have durability issues or Rachaad White has a bounce back season, then it's like, oh, hold on. This isn't like the Bucky show. This is more of a 50-50 kind of timeshare. And if you're paying the running back 7 for that, I don't know if that's worth it. You know what
running
I mean?
back 7 is pretty high.
It absolutely is. I'm scrolling down the list to see who he falls around. So I'll throw it out to you, Woo. In a startup draft, would you rather have Bucky Irving or Tet McMillan?
Tet McMillan.
Would you rather have Bucky Irving or Jonathan Taylor?
Jonathan Taylor.
Right? Would you have Bucky Irving or Kyron Williams?
Kyron Williams.
You know what I mean? All those guys are ranked lower than him on the board, and I'd much rather have those guys because I know I'm getting sustained value.
Yep.
So interesting stuff. Let us know what you think. Leave a comment. You tell us who you think is overrated.
Yeah, we could be horribly wrong.
Absolutely. You never know. That's the beauty of the NFL. But that is just the quick question of the show, ladies and gentlemen. We're here for the main part. We're talking rookie wide receivers. All right. Now, we're going to talk about 6 main rookie wide receivers today, and then afterwards, Woo and I have some bonus guys you want to keep your eye on. Maybe slip that in the back pocket so you have that info for your rookie drafts. But I'm just highlighting for everyone and letting everyone know this rookie class is not as good as the previous class, right? You do not have your Marvin Harrison Jr.'s. You do not have your Malik Neighbors. But, you have some interesting pieces in this class. And I'm interested to see where the NFL values these wide receivers because I think there are some that are, I'll call their sneaky special. You know what I mean? Where I think if they get into the right system, I think they're they could be dynamite. You know,
I was just gonna say, I think this class is a lot more dependent on their landing spot. As in, last year you could put Neighbors, Brian Thomas, Marvin Harrison Jr. on pretty much any team, and I think they would be just fine.
Absolutely. Again, as we talk about our draft process, we've talked about it before, but we break it up into 5 categories. We have our pre-film, so that's where we talk about stats and accolades. Our post-film, that's our impressions and thoughts about a player. We may give you, a couple of comps for some players. Then we'll roll into best fits. And this is where do we see this player finding the most success? Obviously mock drafts are telling us where, the NFL values these players, but, maybe we'll give you one that's a little off the beaten path that we think is where they can find the most fantasy success. And then we'll, kind of wrap it up with our overall thoughts and impressions of what we thought of this player. What do we think that they can do in the future of NFL? Maybe share with you where we feel like taking them in rookie drafts is important. And then, also sharing our personal rankings.
Let's go.
All right. So first man we're going to talk about is Teteroa McMillan. That is wide receiver from the University of Arizona. He had a breakout year in 2023. I'm looking at my pre-draft notes that I just, I put here, Wu, that he had an amazing year with a bad QB.
Yeah.
I believe he had back-to-back seasons with 1,300 yards, which is, insane. I think this past year he had 1,300 yards, 9 touchdowns. I just got to double check.
Yeah, he was a part of, kind of rebuilding that Arizona, football program, in 23. It was a down year this year, but the year prior was definitely special for that program.
Oh yeah, definitely. But I think the fact that he was able to do it, 2 times, obviously the year before was the bigger season. He had 1,400 yards, but the fact that he could do it again, shows the consistency, shows that, the dominator, that he's 6'5". He's a monster.
I'm such a sucker for bigger receivers.
You know what I mean? Like, I put right here, like, dude's a reception hog. He had 90 receptions, which is second best in the class. You know what I mean? We're highlighting his 2023 season where he had the most receiving yards in the class. But I think even if you take into account his current year where he had 1,300 yards, I still think he beats everybody in the class. Yeah, he beats everyone in the class. So, like, he's a dominator. You know what I mean?
100%.
But I put here, he had good yards per catch, 15.6. And I I don't think it's a shock to anyone, but I think he profiles as an outside X receiver.
Yeah.
Being 6'5". Who knows? Maybe someone wants to get creative and kick him in the slot, but I think majority of the time you're going to see him on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
But what are your thoughts, impressions, Wu, of Teteroa and McMillan?
Yeah. So right off the bat, before I got into the film, all I've been hearing is best receiver in the class. He's going to be the first one off the board. And I think it's possible for sure. One thing I really liked was this past season he had 2 drops, which was the best of those ranked in the top 10 in targets. So, obviously as a receiver, you want to catch the ball, and not dropping the ball is important.
Yep.
Only having 2 over an entire season, love that number. Like I said earlier, I'm a sucker for receivers with a big frame. Like I don't know what it is, but just seeing them go for a jump ball in the red zone, love that.
It's a reliable target.
Exactly. And then he didn't perform at the combine, so we'll have to see what he looks like at his pro day. But I'm expecting good things.
Absolutely. Yeah. So when I'm looking at my post-film stuff, I decided to, break it down into a couple of categories. Obviously hands, like you pointed out, like, is he a sure-handed guy? You pointed out he had, 2 drops the entire season, and I had here, 2.4 drop percentage is what he had. Hardly drops anything. The other key thing that I'm going to point out with all of these wide receivers is I'm a big person of looking at yards per route run. I think that it's a very sticky stat that we can rely on for future success in the NFL. And the number that I'm looking for is, are you over 2.5 yards per route run? Either versus zone or versus man. So McMillan comes in versus zone. He hits that threshold at 2.5 yards per route run, and then versus man, he's 2.9. So he's a man beater. The other 2 I had were separation and route tree. I put for separation. When he's running his routes, he makes okay separation.
Yeah.
But he really separates once the ball gets in his hands. Like,
yes.
He has a knack for, evading defenders and getting down the field. So, his separation on his routes are, I guess they're good enough, for the NFL. But he really shines when he has the ball in his hand. And the last thing I put was route tree. And all I'm looking for that is, can you win at all three levels? Can you win in the short routes? Can you win in the intermediate? Can you win in the deep routes? And he runs at all three levels, which you love to see, because you're going to get a diverse route tree where he goes. I put here for a couple of extra notes. He's not a jump ball guy, even though he can go up and get it. But I think because he's such a diverse route runner, you know what I mean? Now, I'm not saying like he's Keenan Allen, but I think he has enough diverse route running where he's not just the jump ball, I'm just going to go get it kind of guy. He's diverse all over the place. I put he's electric when the ball is in his hands. He pulls away from defenders, and he has a knack for sitting in the zone well, where he's not going out into his break and running at a receiver. He feels that cushion to turn into the zone and just be a reliable target for his quarterback.
So for me, I obviously want to highlight his elite hands. We talked about the 2 drops. I also thought he was really good at using his size to his advantage. He doesn't have top end speed. He's 6'5". He's massive.
Right.
So he's not going to have burner speed. But he really uses his size to his advantage. He talked about his separation at the top of routes. I think he has really great awareness after the catch. He can avoid big hits, which nobody likes big hits.
Yep.
So I saw that a few times where he was getting out of the way. He knew he had a defender on his back, and was aware of that. And even with the yards after the catch, not having top end speed, like he can make guys miss and use the right angles to get some really big chunk plays. I like the speed, for how big he is. Definitely a red zone threat. I love his timing in the red zone, and really just his timing in general on routes. He's really good at selling. If he's like running up the seam and he's got a defender, right in his face, and that the defensive back has no idea where he's going to go, he's really good at selling one move and going the other way. One thing I want to see is, because he's so big, I want to see him fight with his hands more at the top of routes. Yeah. I feel like he let defenders get a little too, into his personal space and kind of slow him down a little bit.
And I think that relates back to like the separation that I was talking about. I think he doesn't have that hand fighting skill to like create that separation to then, break off into his routes. But that's a good thing to point out.
Right. Like I've kind of already mentioned before, he's crafty after the catch. He can make guys miss and rack up that yak. His releases are solid. I think he needs to be a little bit more creative just because he doesn't have that top end speed. He's not going to burn past the guy. And these corners in the NFL are going to be a lot more physical and just bigger in general in the NFL. So I think he needs to get more crafty with that and use his hands more. And I loved his route running in the short and the medium game. It's definitely good. I think his deep routes are good, but I think his short and medium routes are definitely a step above those deep balls.
Yeah. Talk to me about, in rookie drafts, is he the bona fide first wide receiver off the board, do you think?
I'm okay with it for sure. I have an argument for another player, and we'll talk about that in a little bit.
I like that.
But I'm not mad at it at all. I think he definitely has a really an opportunity to have a really high ceiling, depending on his landing spot.
Yeah, very nice. Some comps that I had for him, I'm going with everyone else. I definitely feel the Drake London, Mike Evans, comps are appropriate for him. I lean more towards, like, if we had a sliding scale from Drake London to Mike Evans, I think he's more towards the London side than the Evans side. I feel like Evans is more of that, like, jump ball, go get it kind of guy, where London kind of does his dirty work, in the short and intermediate. And I think that's what McMillan does, does best.
I like those two. The one I have is DeAndre Hopkins light. I love the mix. I love the size and the great hands. We talked about he's not necessarily an elite jump ball guy, but just because of his size and his hands, it is always an option.
Just comes naturally.
Yeah, and it just seemed like DeAndre Hopkins, the dude never dropped the ball. And I think McMillan has similar traits to that. I would just say the only thing, that I'm not fully getting DeAndre Hopkins is the route running, but I think that's coachable.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Talk to me about some best fits that you had for him. Where do you think where he fits the best?
Yeah, so I have 3. My first one's going to be the Carolina Panthers. Get Bryce Young, his wide receiver 1.
Josh Rondo, stand up.
Yeah, get Bryce Young, his wide receiver 1. Tech can walk onto this roster and be the best receiver, no questions asked. And there's even a veteran guy like Thielen there who can help him with his transition. And, because the wide receiver room isn't that great, the targets will follow. My next one's going to be the New England Patriots, and pretty much all I wrote was see the Carolina Panthers argument because it's pretty much the same thing. Get Drake May a wide receiver one. We were talking about the Patriots pre-show. Like, they have plumbers and electricians out there running routes. So again, Tech can walk onto this roster, easily be the best receiver. And then my last one is the Denver Broncos, which I think is the least likely. They're way too far down in the draft. But this team is desperate for playmakers. They have a guy in Knicks. The Sean Payton offense is working there. And Sutton can help to ease into his transition. All eyes won't necessarily be on McMillan. Sutton's a veteran guy. I think he's 29, probably going to be 30 next year during that season. So I just think this would be a really good spot and to give your young quarterback a target for the next however many years.
Yeah. I definitely had it Carolina and New England down, so I'm not going to repeat or go over again.
Those are the two
and they're the most
ones.
Yeah, the most obvious ones. I think to be fair, as now we're starting to see everything play out, I don't see New England going for him, even though that's what everybody does. Like you pair your rookie quarterback with an elite receiver so that Burrow and Chase, you know what I mean? Like, you do that because there you see the most success.
My only pushback on New England maybe not doing it is free agency it just started a few days ago. They went heavy on defense. So now my thought process is, they'll be going heavy on offense in the draft. They need to upgrade the offensive line, no question about it. But people are nervous about Will Campbell at LSU. Apparently his arms are too short. Yeah. To me, that's nonsense. But whatever.
Dude's a dog.
Exactly. So, but again, I think they're gonna really hammer off. They have to hammer offense in this draft,
right?
Especially because of how much money they spent on their defense. So I don't think him at 4 is completely out of the question. I definitely don't think it's as likely. I'd probably say it's like 75-25 where they don't go him.
Yeah.
But I still think it's absolutely an option.
Yeah, I think that's a fair percentage. The third one that I had was Green Bay, and the only reason why I'm thinking Green Bay is because they interviewed Josh Jacobs got interviewed during the offseason, and I want to say he was at Barstool's headquarters in Chicago, but essentially what he said was there isn't a true number one wide receiver there.
Yeah, I remember seeing this.
He had all respect to the receivers in the room, but nobody's a true one.
You're right.
Ted McMillan's a true one. Yeah. You know what I mean? He steps on the field and he's going to demand targets. And honestly, I think if you do that, that offense becomes a lot more dynamic because think about this. You have Ted McMillan on the outside, you have Jaden Reed inside the slot, Tucker Kraft, and then you have, Josh Jacobs out of the backfield. You can't guard all of that. You know what I mean?
With a solidified quarterback in place.
With a solidified quarterback in Jordan Love, and he's totally going, he's someone who can facilitate that to 2-3 wide receivers, and then you get close in the red zone, boom, you got Josh Jacobs. So I would be very in betting wise. I would be in on Green Bay if they went for someone like Ted McMillan in the first round.
Yeah,
just saying. But some overall thoughts that I had for Tet is that he's definitely for me the number one wide receiver in this class. I like the shiftiness that he has when the ball is in his hands. But I personally feel like he needs to work on his separation at the line of scrimmage. Kind of work on some hand fighting. So that he can become a bigger separator and be a more reliable target for his quarterback.
Yeah, I pretty much echo all those things. I personally have him ranked at 2.
Nice, yeah. So,
but I get the argument for 1.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're gonna go into our next person, Mr. Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver out of Ohio State. Emeka Egbuka, someone who I think he's an older prospect. He's got the build, 6 foot, 205. That's a check in my book. But my thing was he was never the number one guy in Ohio State. You look at Ohio State, but and it's not even a fault to him because he was playing with absolute studs. Marvin Harrison Jr., Jackson Smith and Jigba, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, and even playing with those guys, he had 10 plus TDs in multiple seasons. Yep. You know what I mean? So it's I don't know. Is Egbuka elite or is he not because he got outshined by all this talent? He's one of the big question marks that I have in this draft is what is he? You know what I mean?
Yep.
70 plus receptions. And in his 2 good years I put here, so I don't know, like what are your thoughts, initial thoughts for Emeka Ibuka?
Yeah, so I definitely want to highlight, that, being at Ohio State, they've printed a lot of top end wide receiver talent, and I'm going to use it as a positive. He's been relevant at a program that has consistently had this top end talent at his same position. And I don't watch a ton of Ohio State college football, but every Saturday I feel like there was always a big Egbuka touchdown, over the last couple of years. And the other thing, he dealt with injuries in 2023. I don't think he missed the entire season, but he definitely missed a good chunk. So that's just a few games of tape that you miss out on him, and any kind of performance he could have. But I'm gonna use it as a positive form that he's been able to stay relevant that whole time with all those names that you already mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely. So once I started watching his tape, I put down for his hands that I did see that he had some drops. He's not 100% reliable, like we were just talking about with McMillan. The dude had 90 receptions with 2 drops. But there were way more than 2 drops for Ibuka. I noted here for his yards per route run. 2.8 versus zone, which is great, and then 2.4 versus man. So, you also like to see, players who can kind of kill it against zone, because that's kind of the majority of what the NFL plays.
Yep.
If you're someone who, can't find the soft spot of the zone, then you're not going to see the field.
That's a problem.
You know what I mean? I think personally he is the most polished receiver in this draft. You know what I mean? Like, you don't go to Ohio State and play with like studs like this and you don't have a polished route tree, or
there's plenty of
the
examples in the
intangibles.
NFL.
You know what I mean? And who knows, that could be very valuable for a team, going in. They might go for Ibuka, who is, a polished guy, can block and and do all the things that a pro is. Like, he's the most pro ready receiver. But I feel like it's, his ceiling, depending on where he goes, could be capped.
Yeah.
So I for route tree again, I said polished route tree, can do every route. I had great instincts around the red zone and the end zone. And you don't just score 10 plus touchdowns multiple seasons for, out of the blue.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But what did you see when you were watching Emeka Ibuka?
Yeah, so I really liked his release. I think he has like really crafty feet around the line of scrimmage, especially in press coverage. That's huge in the NFL. I've already talked about how these DBs are bigger and stronger and faster than what he's seeing in college. He was using a lot of spots on the field, mainly lined up in the slot, but I like the versatility that he provides. A creative offensive mind can do whatever the hell he wants with them, which is awesome. He can be quick out of his breaks during the route, but sometimes it's a little inconsistent. I don't know if he gets bored out there or if he gets lazy, whatever the case may be. There was just too many instances for me to not bring it up.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a major issue, but I did see it enough. I think he has good speed. You talk about the drops; they can definitely be an issue. He doesn't have the sticky hands like McMillan. He was used as a runner a little bit, so again, adding to that versatility, a creative offensive mind can run with that. I think he's really good after the catch, making guys miss. He's really good at adjusting late in a route to throw off a defensive back. I talked about this with McMillan. Really selling, going one way and ending up the other way, and creating good separation. And I thought he was a really good route runner. You talked about it. He's probably the most polished route runner in this class, and it shows on tape. He's very technical with his movements, very intentional with what he does. He's not wasting, a lot of motion and energy out there.
Absolutely. I also put this in, and I forgot to say this in my notes. Like, just like you said, like he was used across all, the entire field, but mostly kind of made his money in the slot. He's kind of like a power. I call it like a power slot, where like he's a big dude. Like, because normally you don't see guys who are 6'2", 205 running in the slot, and
right.
And that kind of rolls right into my comp for him. When he was playing in the slot, what I saw was a lot of DJ Moore. You know what I mean?
I heard that name come up a little bit.
Just someone that is a mismatch when you put him in the slot, and he, has a refined, route tree where, he can just kind of blow by you. You know what I mean? Find the soft spot of the zone, and then, keep the change moving. So that was my comp for him. But what did you have?
So I have Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Also another power slot. I love that.
So I just want to look up his measurables. He's 6'2", 202.
Yeah.
So it's pretty much on the money. But when I put this down, I'm talking about in terms of his usage in the slot and his great route running ability. That's what you see from Amon-Ra. And Amon-Ra, it took him almost a full season to kind of get to where he is now and become that star.
It was the second half of his rookie years when he really broke out.
Yeah, so really anything can happen. I'm not saying Ibuka is going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown as soon as he touches the field, but those traits are there, and clearly it's worked for him. Why can't it work for Ibuka?
Right. So some fits that I had for him. I thought Tennessee was my first one. Kind of pairing up where you have Ridley on the outside and you play him in the slot, or you could put him on the other side. He's just that versatile.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one I had was Dallas. I think pairing him with CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb is someone who's going to stretch the field, take the eyes off him, and then he can just kind of come underneath, move the chains for you, or take or break a long one for you. But I liked the Dallas pick.
I really like that Dallas one. If I didn't already have 3 teams down, Dallas would have been my fourth, but I didn't. I didn't want to have too many options. My first one's going to be Denver. I know I keep putting Denver for a lot of these best.
They
fits,
need a receiver
but
though.
They need offensive weapons. They found their quarterback. The coach works with him really well. So they need guys like this. They need a playmaker. He would fit in the slot well. They already have Sutton, so all the eyes wouldn't be totally on him. I think Sean Payton could get creative with it, lining him up pretty much anywhere he wants. And with Sutton's age, Ibuka could work his way into a larger role if that's the way his NFL career is trending.
Right.
The other one I have is Baltimore. I think he would pair really well with Flowers. Again, fits into the slot role. Mark Andrews is getting older, which will open up more targets down the line if he's progressing at that rate. And your quarterback's Lamar. Like, what else could you ask for?
Right.
And then my last one's Houston. Again, elite young quarterback. Paired with Nico Collins. Not all the eyes are going to be on you. That offense has been explosive in years past. This year was a down year. So I'd like to see them, take that step forward. I think he would play a big part in that.
Yeah. I just think I'm thinking back to that Denver comp that you gave, and I'm just thinking you have Sutton on one side, Ibuka on the other, Mims in the slot. Maybe they, I guess it rolls into my question, but potentially someone in the backfield. My question for you, Wu, is Ibuka a first round pick? We didn't talk about it with Tet, but I think we can all say that Tet's a first round pick.
Yeah.
But is Ibuka a first round pick?
If he is, it's gonna be 24 or later or higher. I'll say.
Yeah, that's respectable.
I've seen his name creep into first round of mocks. Especially after the combine, but after the combine. I have seen it slide back a little bit with other names moving up and down, but again, that's all all guesses. Nobody actually knows. And I think he can be. I'm gonna say he is. I'm gonna say he is a first round pick.
Well, I mean, if you take that, we're speaking hypotheticals into the future, but if you take that and Ibuka is a first round pick, you need to adjust your rankings accordingly, for your rookie drafts, because if the one thing that I've learned, like especially doing Dynasty, is if the NFL is telling you they respect this player and want this player, you have to put some stake into that. Yes. Because if you don't, and you're just like, whatever, I'm just gonna go, this running back that I really like, that you could really miss out on an elite talent. Because if Ibuka goes in the first round, what that tells me is that even if he doesn't work out in any other place, somebody's going to give him another shot. And if you can get a player that has multiple chances, even if they bounce around to other teams, see Sammy Watkins, someone like Sammy Watkins who bounced around to other teams, but he just kept getting opportunities. That's fantasy value right there that you want to hold on to.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the top of the draft right now. I just talked about the Texans. They could use another receiver. Baltimore is up there. Washington, why would they not give, Jaden Daniels another playmaker?
Right.
Kansas City, they clearly need to boost that offense after that Super Bowl performance.
Right.
So there's tons of names up here where if they drafted him, I think it makes sense.
Yeah. So just keep that as a tip for all you listeners out there. Just make sure you're paying attention to where these guys are getting drafted and what the NFL is telling you.
Yes.
Just to round out Ibuka, my overall thoughts, I had he is the most polished receiver in the class. I think he's the most pro-ready receiver in his class. has okay hands. I would love to see him improve on that. But I feel like he sits in his zone well, finds the soft spots. And then I put it, he's not a 1, but he could be an elite 2,
Yes.
With
one upside potential.
With one upside potential, absolutely. Like he almost feels like a Devontae Smith, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where you're not a 1, but you could be that elite 2 for your offense.
Yep, I like that.
But yeah, so Ibuka is sitting at my wide receiver 3. Where does Ibuka sit for you, Will?
I believe he is also my 3rd.
Nice.
I don't know why I thought had him at 4 for a second, but he is ranked 3rd for me.
Continuity, we love to see it. Did you have any other round out thoughts for Ibuka?
No, I just want to mention again, like he's definitely the most polished guy. Ohio State has printed a lot of top end NFL receivers, so obviously you like that trend, going into next year. And like we just said, pay attention to see where he gets drafted, because if he's a first round pick, you should be excited about him.
Absolutely. All right, we're gonna move into our 3rd wide receiver, Luther Burden III. Love a Luther. I don't know.
It's a great name.
This is a great name. Luther Burden III, wide receiver out of Missouri, was a 5-star recruit, Max Preps Player of the Year of his class. Decides to go to Missouri. 2023, he had an amazing year, and I think that was what kind of put everybody on notice for Luther Burden as a potential, draft prospect. And I want to say he was the name to be talked about after the 2023 season, along with like Tet. 2024 rolls around. He has a bad year, and I'm just gonna say it right here. I don't understand the Burden hate. It's
don't even get me started. Don't even get me started.
It's kind of insane, though. Actually, like when I was scrolling through Twitter, you know what I mean, before doing this and looking at his profile, and I just hear like the hate for. And
it was
Burden.
after the combine. I thought he looked great.
Yeah, and I just didn't understand it, and I mean, I'm going to get into the film stuff, but let me just round out his highlight year that we had in 2023. 86 receptions, 1,212 yards. He had a yards per catch of 14.1, which you love to see, and he had 9 touchdowns. And the other good thing about it is he was one of the kind of few wide receivers in this class that got used a lot in the running game.
Yep.
So he was versatile. But any pre-draft thoughts, Boo, that you wanted to get off your chest before we get into this?
Yeah, so I didn't watch any Missouri this year, left hand up. So I went into this film, fresh viewpoint, pretty much didn't know much about this guy. I've heard him, as the draft has gotten closer, and you're starting to think about your rookie drafts. Obviously, I knew his name was up there, but in terms of who he was on the field, I had no idea. I've seen his name in the top 2-3 wide receivers in this class. The rushing attempts, I love that with receivers. It's just another dimension of your game, and it's extra fantasy points, which is all we're looking for.
Right.
I've mentioned this for all the position groups. You play in the SEC. He's playing the best talent there is in college football, so I thoroughly enjoy that. And then he goes out and runs a 4.41 at the combine.
Right.
So, I don't get the hate.
I don't either. So when I started to watch it, like I'll be honest with you, I was drinking the Kool-Aid, going through Twitter, and I was the believer of like I thought Tet was 1, but I was like, Ibuka's definitely the 2. You know what I mean? Like he's the most polished guy. He's gonna be a better prospect than Burden. And then you start watching the Burden tape, and you're like, this dude is special. And I'm gonna go off on a tangent here because I am so angry at this quarterback play from Missouri. I don't understand it, because you have a 5-star recruit, an elite athlete. You watch him play, and he is electric with the ball in his hands. He makes people miss. He blows by people, and all they could get him with was like short area, like 5-yard, 3-yard out, or a slant across the middle.
Yeah,
or
here's the ball. You figure it out.
Yeah, it's like, here, let's give you a bubble screen and just figure it out. It's like, no, push the ball down the field so we can beat somebody.
Yes.
Like it was so infuriating, because I'm preparing to watch this film. I've hearing from what I've heard from Twitter, thinking like, this guy's a bum, and I'm watching it and I'm like, this dude's electric. Yes. So I I understand the hype now. I am on the Burden hype train.
Yep.
You know, I think he has great hands. You know, you didn't get to see much of it because it was all short area passes. So no one really kind of tested, you know, his hands down the field. I think he makes amazing separation in the short area. You know, the routes that he was running were just flat screens, you know, et cetera, stuff like that. But when he got the ball, he had amazing burst and he could just blow by people.
Oh yeah.
You know, he stopped on it. He could stop on a dime and change directions. I noted here, you know, for his yards per route run, 2.4 versus zone, 2.6 versus man. You know, it checks both boxes for me. And the knock that I had for him is, you know, his route tree. Now, is it him? I don't think so. I think it's his quarterback, but it wasn't diverse. A lot of reverses, jet passes, bubble screens, you know, but I get it because, you know, he makes things happen. You want to get the ball in his hands, but it's like, I want more than nothing for him to go to a place that has a reliable quarterback that can utilize his entire skill set.
And even if the route tree is his fault, you're going to tell me he has all these athletic intangibles and you see what he does with the ball around the line of scrimmage and you can't teach him that?
Right.
So
unreal. You know, and so my last couple of thoughts when I was watching the film, I put it here. I said, the more I watch, the more I blame the quarterback.
Yep.
I said, dude is talented, and then the QB never pushed the ball down the field. You know, listen, I'm not trying to hate, but like, you know, let's
be real.
This guy's special.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So go ahead, Will. I'll give you the floor.
Yeah. So the design touches around the line of scrimmage I love, especially with what he was able to do with the ball. So I can't wait to see him get to a competent NFL offense, and they can use him, you know, further than 2 yards past the line of scrimmage or even 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage like they were. But I love the motion around the line of scrimmage with the orbit screens and the bubble screens, all that, because you just need to get this guy the ball. It doesn't really matter where he gets it because he can turn it into pretty much anything. The yards after the catch are insane. Makes guys miss all the time. Really good change of speed, and his contact balance is phenomenal. Shrugs off tackles all the time. Just gets yards that he has no business getting. Especially I think he's 5'10", 5'11". Like he's not necessarily a massive guy.
No, he's only 5'11".
Yeah, so I mean he's pretty built, obviously. But again, like he just gets yards that he'll have like 2 to 3 guys around him. You're like, all right, this play's over, and then he shrugs off all of them, and you're like, how did he just score?
Right.
So that's just, it's crazy. My negative was he can get a little lazy on routes, especially on plays where he knows he's not getting the ball. It is what it is. You know, the attitude thing, you know, I'm not gonna harp on it too much. I think, you know, with the right coaching staff and the right culture, that I think you can get rid of that pretty easily. But that is one thing that kind of bothers me. You know, you always want to be putting out 110% effort on every single play.
Right.
But he lines up all over the field. Another guy who, with a creative offensive mind, like can literally do anything they want with this guy. He's so dangerous when he gets into space. But he's also like so good at finding space that isn't even there. Like when he first catches the ball, you know, he's really good at finding that green grass. Has that second gear when he gets the ball. All of a sudden, boom, he's gone. He's willing to block. He's not great at it, but I think that's coachable, so I'm not really worried about it. The fact that he puts forth the effort is enough for me.
Yeah. I'll give you a comps and fits for him. My comps I had were McCole Hardman plus, and then the other one I had was Percy Harvin light. You know, just because using, you know, on reverses, just short area, just give this guy the ball and just let him go to work. You know, so those were some comps that I saw when I was watching him. Some fits that I had. I think he would pair perfectly with Garrett Wilson in New York. And if you were to get him a competent quarterback that could, you know, push the ball down the field to Wilson and then hit Burden underneath, that'd be so dangerous.
Wow.
The other one I also liked was Las Vegas. You know, I think, you know, Chip Kelly coming in, and now you have Geno Smith. Geno Smith tore it up with Jackson Smith and Jigba. You know, I think that it would be a natural fit. I wonder how it would work though with the combination of him. You know, I would really hope that they would push him down the field more because you know Brock Bowers would be your kind of short area guy. I'm sure they would probably find a way to figure it out. But those were my comp and my two fits. But I'll kick it to you, Will.
So my comp is mini Debo Samuel.
Yeah.
Like just watching it, this guy's everywhere. Around the line of scrimmage, even some handoffs. He can catch the ball. He's great in space. Shrugs off tackles. Like it only took me a couple plays, and I found my comp pretty much right away.
Yeah.
So then a couple fits to go with it. First one's the Kansas City Chiefs. I mentioned they need to boost that offense real bad. Get Mahomes another weapon. Obviously, anyone can fit well with Mahomes, but I think Burden would be perfect for that scheme. He's a guy you can move around, get creative with, and that's right up Andy Reid's alley.
Mm-hmm.
So I would just love to see what they would cook up there. And then my second one is the 49ers. Debo replacement in all caps.
Perfect.
Debo replacement. Apparently they want to get rid of Ayuk. That's a whole other story. I don't even want to get into that. That's making me really mad. Why pay him all that money? I don't get it. But it gives them a weapon on a rookie deal. It's a West Coast offense, lots of motions. Kyle Shanahan has, always been a part of really special offenses. And, again, Debo replacement.
Yeah. My overall thoughts on him, he is a talented receiver. I think he has the highest ceiling in this draft class, with the highest potential. I put here, Mizzou did this guy such a disservice. And I appreciate it because I think is he a Missouri guy? Was he from, I can't remember where he's from, but like I always will commend college players staying in your home state and playing for your home university, but they did him.
Yeah, I wonder who did that.
Yeah, but they did him such a disservice. He probably profiles as a slot receiver. I think they could probably use him in other areas, but my last kind of question that I had, is he only a jet sweep bubble screen guy? I really hope not, and I hope he's got a larger bag of short intermediate routes and things like that.
I think he absolutely does. He has all the intangibles. I think it's all there. You just need to have the right coach and system for him.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Well, first, where do you have him ranked?
Oh, where do I have him ranked?
Yeah.
He's my number 2. Where do you have him ranked?
He's my wide receiver 1.
So all right. So tell me why is he your 1 over Ted?
Like you just said, the ceiling is crazy for me. I just think he's so versatile. You can use him anywhere. I refuse to believe that he's only a 3-yard downfield guy. Like, I think there's so much more that you can do with him. This is hinging on where he goes, I would say. I don't think he can go anywhere and be a better receiver than McMillan. So I will put that out there as well. But I just think his ceiling is insane. The way he can catch a ball, even if it's 5 yards past the line of scrimmage, and he's got 2 linebackers and a safety coming down on him, and then all of a sudden you blink and he's 20 yards down the field, and there's no one within 5 yards of him. Yeah. Like, to me, it's just what he can do after the catch, the yards that he can get when nobody has any business getting them. To me, I just think his ceiling is much higher than McMillan. And I'm not. This has nothing to do. This is not a knock on McMillan at all. I just think someone can be so creative with this guy and really get so much out of him.
I like that. So I'm gonna put your money where your mouth is. Where do you feel comfortable drafting him in rookie drafts?
So in my mind, Gentry's going 1.
Yep.
I've seen Ward go 2 a lot, and I don't know if I'm really mad at it. Somebody's got to take a quarterback.
Sure.
So, that's kind of where these receivers start to line up. I see McMillan a lot at 3. Obviously, I'm a lot higher on Burden than other people. So if that 3rd pick comes around and I'm comfortable at running back already, then I have no problem taking a shot on Burden.
At the 1
I will say, though, if you do need running backs, I would take the running backs ahead of them just because of how special this class is.
Or you play it smart, and if Burden is someone that you want, really bad, trade out of that 3rd pick and see. I'm not saying that it's a definite, but trade out and try to get 2 first-round picks, and then you take a running back and Burden.
Yes, I'm seeing where he goes. Let's see. I want to say he's around like the 8th. He's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So he's going 7th right now off the board. So the name ahead of him is Tyler Warren, Travion Henderson, and Hampton.
I could see the argument for Warren.
Hampton, Warren, sure.
Yeah, my love for Hampton. I don't know if I could take him over Bird.
But I think I would rather have Luther Bird than Travion Henderson. That might be a hot take.
Yeah, it could be a hot take. Who knows? So we're all wrapped up on Mr. Burdenwood. Do you want to anything else you need to get off your chest?
That's
on
all
him?
I got. I think I got everything on him. I love what I saw.
Absolutely. All right, we're gonna move into our next wide receiver. This one I'm feeling the type of way about this guy. This is Mr. Trey Harris from Ole Miss. I got a quick little background for you, Will, and I don't know if you know this, but I'm gonna give it to you anyway.
Set the scene.
I'm gonna take you to Ove Como High School in Lafayette, Louisiana.
Okay.
Trey Harris is there. Malik Neighbors is there. They go to the same high school. Malik Neighbors tells Trey Harris, "Brother, I need you to play quarterback. I don't trust anyone else throwing me the football." So Trey Harris plays quarterback at Ove Como High School with Malik Neighbors, and he plays quarterback. Then he transfers, or he goes to college. I can't remember where he was playing before, but he converted from a QB to a wide receiver. Then he transfers to Ole Miss, and here you go, ladies and gentlemen, 6'3", 210-pound man, like a man's body. He only played. I'm going to say, again, he only played 8 games last year. And in those 8 games, he had 1,000 receiving yards. His yards per catch were 17.2, which is the highest in the class. And he also, I'm going to take away 7 touchdowns in 8 games played. He didn't even play 4 other games like these other guys. Like, you have guys on this list who are playing, like Matthew Golden played 16 games. Like, this guy's doing 8 games and he has more receiving yards, than Matthew Golden.
He's impressive for sure.
So, I am on the Trey Harris train. I think he has so much potential. I think he is just learning how to play wide receiver, and he did it in the SEC. Against like you always say, you played in the SEC against elite talent every single day. I think Trey Harris could be dangerous, but
there's worse guys to back.
Yeah,
there's worse guys to back.
But pre-draft, pre-film stuff. What did you have for Trey?
So the big frame. Like I mentioned with McMillan, I love that in receivers for whatever reason. I don't really have a reason for it, but it's just the truth. Played in the SEC on a great Ole Miss offense. The offense was very explosive, highly explosive. You touched on him only playing 8 games, so he didn't necessarily. He had a very, very good year for only playing 8 games, but he didn't necessarily light up the stat sheet. No. But again, it's because he dealt with injuries, so that's not a big deal. He's on like the older side. I have it in quotations. He's older compared to other receivers, but I don't know if I care enough for it to really matter.
I think what is he? 24 years old is what we had.
I think he's like 23 or something. So it's really even not that old. It's just in comparison to the rest of the class. So I just wanted to talk about that a little bit. 4.5 40, but he looked a lot faster than that, when I was watching film. So that's not a number I'm necessarily concerned about.
Yeah. So when I dove into the tape, I thought he definitely had reliable hands. He's 6'3" and he had a large, catch radius. There were times where, Dart wasn't the most accurate and he was just able to, gobble up that catch and, keep it pushing. His I put here for his separation. Dude looks always wide open. Like I was watching his tape and it's just like, I don't know. You hit that moment when you're watching him and like there are defenders around him, but they're like within like 4 to 5 yards, and there's Trey Harris just sitting in the middle of the zone, like wide open.
He is so physical. Like Ted McMillan, take notes, dude.
Yes, exactly. He has great separation and he creates it at all 3 levels. Again, we talked about yards per route run. He had 4.2 versus man.
It's nuts.
Versus man.
It's wild.
And then 2.8 versus zone. I talked about him prior to the draft, and his career yards per route run is 5. We talked about yards per route run, 2.5 and higher is good. He's double that. And so that's what blows my mind. Like, this dude is still learning how to play receiver, and he's just putting up like elite metrics. It's insane. But so I put here for his route tree. He wins at all 3 levels. But Ole Miss loved running him on the 5-yard stop. He loved the 5-yard stop. But I mean, it worked. He created so much separation from it. I put he was shifty in the open field, and then he was able to find the soft spots in zone defense. But what did you notice when you were watching him?
So he's a bigger guy. He's got a little bit of a slower release, similar to McMillan. But even though he kind of it's not. I'm not saying he's slow. He even though he lacks that like top end speed and burst, just his use of angles. There was this. I was watching the game against LSU. This guy, he'd be lined out outside, just a go ball at the sideline. Even when the defensive back was probably 3 yards off the line of scrimmage, not in press coverage in any single way, shape, or form. Somehow it looks like he's jogging, and he gets by him every time, and he's stacking the DB. I don't get how he did it. It was so strange to watch, and it was just very impressive. He's great in contested catch situations. Had a disgusting catch in that LSU game.
Yes,
just absolutely mossed that guy in the end zone. So I love to see that. It could be a great red zone target. Definitely a deep ball guy, but again, he doesn't do it with blazing speed. It's his angles and his physicality that he's able to get past some of these guys. He doesn't necessarily have like a full route tree. I kind of see him as a wide receiver too, but you've touched on it. He's still learning how to play receiver, so God only knows what he can actually do when he has enough games under his belt and enough reps. Because he's not fast, he's so good at selling moves mid-route and just creating just ridiculous separation for someone who's not that fast.
Yeah. Give me a comp and a best fit for Trey.
So I have Michael Thomas physicality.
Oh my God! I'm gonna stop you right now,
but not in a bad way.
No. I'm stopping you because that's the exact comp that I had for him.
Yes.
Like we talk. So I was gonna say this when I get to it, but I saw all Michael Thomas when I was watching him, but we talked about Michael Thomas as the slant god.
Yeah.
This guy's the stop god.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
Disgusting, but I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's all right. So I have Michael Thomas physicality, big target on short routes, but then on top of that, he has the deep ball ability. He's not just a slants guy. And then my 3 fits, I have the Dallas Cowboys, similar to would you have Ibuka with the Cowboys?
Yeah, Ibuka.
Similar argument, would be great next to Lamb, great offense. And Dallas has had 2 productive receivers in years past. Dak can easily, feed both of those mouths. So I wouldn't have a problem with that. The other one is the Chargers, similar situation. Herbert can easily make 2 receivers relevant in that offense. Ladd can take some eyes off of Harris as he works his way into the NFL and continues to learn the position. And Harris can work downfield while Ladd just works the middle in between the numbers like he did all year.
Yeah.
My last one's the New York Jets. Pairing with Garrett Wilson provides a deep threat to an offense that is so desperate for another pass catcher after losing Devontae Adams. I would
say who's the second receiver on their list right now? Like it's someone I've never heard of.
I think it's Xavier Gibson.
Okay.
The punt
maybe
returner,
the third then.
The punt returner. But yeah, they lose Devontae Adams. They lose, even though I don't consider this guy a pass catcher, but Alan Lazard. it's the position he plays, but he's not a pass catcher.
Yep.
So yeah, those are my 3 fits for him.
Yeah. My comp was also Michael Thomas. But my fits I put Carolina. I think the same argument that we had for Tet as a big body receiver that can just come in and be a reliable target for Bryce Young from the jump. You have a couple of years of Adam Thielen, still teaching him the ways, and honestly, Adam Thielen's a great mentor to have.
It's kind of similar. He's not very fast either.
Right, exactly.
He uses his body and angles too.
And then the other one I had was Seattle. I know this one is a little bit tougher because we've already talked about the offensive coordinator change, but I think they need somebody, and I think they're going to get somebody because their second wide receiver on the list is Jake Bobo, and I'm sorry, Jake Bobo, you're not a 2.
No.
So I think they make a move, and I think he could pair very well with Jackson Smith and Jigba, where JSN kind of does your short intermediates, Trey Harris stretches the field for you, and maybe be a contested catch guy.
Yeah.
So my overall thoughts I had, I put here in bold as my first overall thought. He's the most potential out of all wide receivers. I think if he grows into that potential, I wouldn't be shocked if he is your number 2 or number 1 wide receiver out of this draft class. I put a big receiver that does more than just contested catches, creates great separation for a bigger receiver, and then here I will be drafting him with my second round pick if I have the chance.
Okay, calling your shot. I like it. I pretty much echo all that. I love his ceiling. The possibility of what he can do. Sure, that possibility does make me a little nervous because nobody has any idea. I do think he might have the biggest question mark in terms of what he can do at the next level. But I think as a 2, I think that would set him up very well for developing in the NFL and becoming someone who could become a 1.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm just looking at his ADP. I believe his ADP has been sitting pretty strong at like round 2, pick 4.
Okay.
But let me give you some names. We'll see if you would take this person or Trey Harris. Would you rather have Milroe or Trey Harris?
Trey Harris.
Okay. Would you rather have Dart or Trey Harris?
Trey Harris.
Really?
Yeah.
Trey Harris over Dart?
Yeah.
I was not expecting that. Loveland over Trey Harris. I know we haven't gotten into tight ends yet, so.
Yeah. I'll go Trey Harris just because of the tight end landscape in the NFL and how it's been with fantasy.
And I will. I'll save my last one because I know I picked out your rankings and you have this player over Trey Harris, which I don't know. We're not going to get into it right now, or maybe we are going to get into it. So we're going to move on. Our second to last receiver that we're listed to talk about is Matthew Golden of the Texas University Longhorns. There you go.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure it out.
It's in there.
Smaller build guy, 5'11", 190. He never had 1,000 yards receiving. 2024 was his best. He had 987, but he's never had 1,000 yards. So red flag number 1. Nice yard per out run. Yeah, 17, which is best in the class, and he had 9 TDs, which is pretty decent. I see Matthew Golden as Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, where the beginning, like during the year, like he's not efficient at all on the field. Yes, he's scoring touchdowns, but he doesn't have the yardage to back it up. And then we get into the college football playoff, and he explodes on the scene, and then there's all this hype around him. It's like Is he a worthy receiver to draft in the first, second round? He goes into the combine, runs a 4.29, and then everyone's like, I'm on the Matthew Golden train.
Mm-hmm.
I will be transparent with you all. I was not on the Matthew Golden train prior to, but I will save my thoughts for when we get into the post film. But I'll kick it to you.
Yeah, my first one, 4.29 exclamation point, goes out and runs the fastest 40. I didn't know he was that fast. I'll be honest.
I didn't either.
I had no idea.
He's an enigma. Like, this dude's an enigma.
Props to him. Texas, we've talked about this a little bit in previous episodes. Their offense this past year, they didn't have like that dude in their offense where you knew the ball was going to him in a big spot. So it was really just a collection of players. Golden, played a little bit more or did a little bit better than Bond this year, which to be honest was surprising. I thought Isaiah Bond would kind of be that dude in this offense, but they didn't. It was a collection of guys playing well. I like the combination of size and speed. He's not huge, but because he's not huge, he's got elite speed clearly. And he had a 70% catch rate on the season, which I think is really good.
Yeah. When I was watching him, I noticed that he did have great hands. He had a couple of bad drops in some of his highlights, but I think overall, like, he had some great hands. I think he had like I can't remember the game, but he did have one nasty catch. I was like, okay, now I'm starting to see it. I put here for separation, and I don't know. Tell me if I'm wrong, but I didn't see him separate a lot. Like, he had 4.29 speed, but a lot of times, like, he's making catches and there's a receiver that's like a step behind him. Like, he wasn't clearly separating, which is concerning for me, because if you can't separate in college, like, who's to say you can't separate in the NFL? But he did have good moments when the ball was in his hands, which is probably why I saw a lot of bubble screens and things like that. Kind of a lot like Burden. Like, you just get your playmaker in space and you let him go to work.
Yep.
This is my red flag number 2. Again, we talked about yards per route run. You want to know what his yards per route run versus man was, Will?
I'm going to say it's below 2. The way you're setting this up.
It's 0.98.
That's all right.
So it's not even 1. So there's my red flag number 2.
Good thing he hasn't played an NFL snap yet. There's so much room for improvement.
But I will give him his props. His yards per route run versus zone is 2.54, and I think that's more important than having a high percentage against man. So, and then I saw, in his route tree, I saw some versatility, but he made most of his money in his intermediate routes and then in his bubble screens. But, after watching it, I know I have been down, but it's different when you put the you throw the stats out there. He never had 1,000 yards receiving. He has 0.98 yards per run versus man. But then when you watch the tape, I just put here at the end, I was like, I see the hype. I see, like, there are flashes there where you're like, all right, like, maybe he's got it.
Yeah.
Like, maybe he doesn't, or maybe he does. But, like, I don't know. He's, I don't know. He's a huge question mark for me.
So I watched his SEC championship film where he went 8 for 162 in a needed game against Georgia. Again, actually, you know what? Before I even start, we talked about how he didn't even have 1,000 yards. I blame Quinn Ewers.
Yeah, blame Quinn.
Arch Manning, he would have 1,500 yards. I'm putting that on record. Anyways, I really like this feed at the top of his routes. He's super quick. I had him as a decent space creator. Obviously not the level of Trey Harris we just talked about, where it was always seemed like there was just nobody playing deep, like they were kind of just letting him go out there and run, even though that wasn't the case. But I do think because of his speed, that's something that can improve. And it isn't too much of a concern for me. I have him as like a solid space creator, I would say. Obviously, really good acceleration out of the break. I like the body control on tough catches. There were a couple games where he had some nutty ones where it was really eye opening. Great releases, even in press coverage. He has that that burner speed, so you might not see him get pressed a lot just because of that. He can really beat you over the top. Super quick in short spaces, can make guys miss. Create space that even after the catch, gets into space that wasn't there when he first had the ball. He kind of sets that up for himself. Very crafty in his routes, getting defensive backs out of position. He's really good at selling, where he's going to go. My big negative on him is he needs to clean up the drops. He's had 13 over the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, definitely. I was just as you were going off, I was looking. He's a junior. I'm going to tell you right now, he probably should have went back to school, because you pair him with Archie Manning, he could probably be the number one running wide receiver next year in this draft class. Yeah. But we'll see. Maybe
the NIL wasn't good enough there.
Yeah, maybe not. But so my comp and my fit that I had for him was I saw a lot of Jalen Hyatt.
I thought you were going to say someone else.
What did you think I was going to say?
Because it's mine.
Okay. I saw a lot of Jalen Hyatt, working in the slot, kind of with an elite speed, downfield. And then some fits that I had for him was, I had the New York Jets, again, just pairing someone with Aaron Rodgers.
I'll take him.
You know what I mean?
Well,
to run in this, or not Aaron Rodgers. I'm sorry. I meant Garrett
Sussy
Wilson.
for Jussie over here now.
It is the Jussie show. But and then the other one was Las Vegas. I think, again, pairing Geno with someone who can play in the slot and be elite in the slot, I think would be huge. But give me a comp, give me a best fit.
So my comp is Jalen Waddle.
I like it. I like it.
Quick, crafty, great burst after the catch, tons of yak. Just love the upside there. So I definitely saw a lot of Jalen Waddle, when he has the ball in his hands. My 2 best fits are Seattle Seahawks. Can stretch the field while a lot of eyes are on JSN. We're really going to see what JSN has this year because they don't have anybody else there. So I think
Absolutely.
Seattle would be desperate for somebody else, and I don't think they're going to. Actually, I have seen Golden's name, kind of creep into that late first round. I think that's a little too high for him. I think he's a day 2 guy. So if he's in that day 2 range, I think Seattle would be able to get him if they wanted to. And Darnold can support multiple fantasy relevant wide receivers. He just did it. Obviously, Jefferson and Addison are a lot different, but that is something he can do. And they lost DK Metcalf and Lockett, so again, they need somebody else
fill
there.
The void.
Exactly.
Yeah. My overall thoughts I have for Golden is he's the biggest question mark out of all of these rookies. I think out of every single person we're going to talk about for these upcoming rookies, I think Matthew Golden is the biggest question mark, because you never know. Like, are you going to get the 8 for 162 Matthew Golden, or are you going to get the Matthew Golden that can't beat man coverage? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, and it's going to be so fascinating to see where he goes. Like, if he's going to go to an elite level, like, wide receiver, like, team that can coach him up and turn him into an elite guy. Because I think if he finds the right coaching, he could be legit. He has great hands. When he wants to. We did talk about his drops. He has trouble separating, but I do see the hype, and I think he can be special in the right system. But we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I got one more best fit. I know you hate this guy so much, you just want to stop talking about him. No, so I have the Washington Commanders. I'm not sold on how much Debo has left in the tank. It's an explosive offense with Jaden Daniels. Terry's getting older, and it gives Golden an avenue to make an impact early. And anytime you can give Jaden Daniels another weapon, why wouldn't you?
Why not? Golden is your wide receiver. What, Woo?
He is my wide receiver 4. I have him above Trey Harris and below Igbuka.
Hate it. But no, I get it. He's my wide receiver 5.
It's not by that much. Like
No.
I'm not saying Golden is not in a tier above Trey Harris. I consider them like the same.
In the
tier.
same. See, I think the way I look at it is I think I think McMillan and Burden I think are in their own tier, and then the next tier I put Ibuka and Harris together, and then I think Golden is in the tier with kind of all of the other names that we are going to talk about, just because there's so many question marks.
That's
You know
fair.
what I mean? And I know there's question marks with Trey Harris, but I feel like he's a more solidified guy than Matthew Golden, but
That's
fair.
fair.
Who knows. Last scheduled guy we are going to talk about is probably the most concerning, but if he plays wide receiver, this man is going to be elite. It is Travis Hunter, wide receiver for the Colorado Buffaloes. I'm going to give you he's probably the most versatile fantasy asset that we've ever seen. He's
one of one.
He's one of one. He's your 2024 Heisman Trophy winner. He's your 2024 Biletnikoff Award winner. He was a unanimous All-American. He has a good build for this iteration of the NFL. 6'1", 180. He's a little smaller guy, but we've seen some smaller guys win in the NFL. So, the other thing I put here, just like McMillan, and it kind of surprises me. He's a target hog. He had 96 receptions, which is the best in the class.
Demands the ball.
1,200 yards, 15 touchdowns, 13 yards per carry, and he played both sides of the ball full time. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to say it again. He played both sides, offense and defense, the entire time, and he still put up 96 receptions, 1,200 yards, and 15 touchdowns.
To those people who said snaps aren't a real stat when it came to the Heisman conversation, Zach Marzano, I'm looking at you. Shut up.
It just blows my mind because we've never seen anything like it. You know what I mean? But again, the big question mark, the elephant in the room is he going to play receiver?
I'm hitting the panic button.
You know what I mean? Like it's so scary, but it's like it could be the greatest pick that you have in your rookie drafts of taking him if he does play receiver full time. Because I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to skip ahead of it. If he plays receiver full time, he is arguably the best receiver in this class.
I'd listen to it.
And I'm just going to say that.
Yep.
But any pre-film thoughts on Travis Hunter?
Yeah, I love the size. We talked about the Biletnikoff, which is crazy. Again, playing all those snaps, and he's still the best receiver in college football.
Right.
Come on, man. What are
He
we
beat out Ted
talking about here?
McMillan.
Exactly. He's a highlight play waiting to happen. He was Bleacher Report's favorite player all season. That guy got him so many views. He goes out and wins the Heisman playing two positions, and he has 15 touchdowns. 15.
Yeah, 15. It's insane.
So man.
So I had a couple of thoughts when I was watching his film before I got into like all of my categories, but I just put dude is a dog. He's dangerous in open space, and you get him the ball in creative spaces. You can get him, you get it to him anywhere, and he's just dangerous with the ball. Short, intermediate, long, screens down the field, reverses. It doesn't matter. Hands, there are no issues with his hands. And in fact, his hands are quite literally disgusting.
Yep.
See the Colorado State game where he like undercuts this cornerback and mosses him for a touchdown. It was insane. But he separates well. But he separates even better when he has the ball in his hands, and he just makes dudes miss. Yards per out run. He's 2.5 versus man, 2.4 versus zone. Check for both boxes. Go. And then for route tree, he's got a diverse route tree of an NFL wide receiver. Everything you need. And by the way, he can all play. You can lock down the number one receiver on the other side of the field. Like it's insane to me.
Yeah, my biggest thing with him is if you look up the definition of athlete in the dictionary, like his picture, big square, like there he is. He's a freak, man. There's really no way for me to put it. So quick after the catch, the yak ability is absolutely there. Really good at tracking the ball. There was one play, I forget who they were playing, but I was watching it as part of the film I was looking at, and he's running a post up the middle. And he probably gets about 15 yards upfield. He looks back and he sees Shedeur cocking back his arm, getting ready to throw him the ball. He doesn't keep his eye on the ball. He keeps running forward, scanning for his like any defensive backs that are out there, make sure he doesn't run into anybody. And by the time he puts his head back up, it's in his hands. Like, sure, great throw from Shedeur, but the fact that you can look at him, then look back at the defenders, and then go back to the ball, I don't get it. To me, that was really special to watch. He sells his routes with great intentional movements and positioning. He doesn't have that crazy speed. I mean, we'll see what if he runs a 40 or not. But I mean, it's not like he has burner speed, but he's definitely not slow. So to see him just create so much separation without having that insane speed is really good to see. I'd like to see him put on maybe a little bit of weight to deal with the extra physical corners in the NFL, but that's not a huge negative for me. The effort to block is there. Again, I'm not a blocking connoisseur, but if I see you throw your body at a bigger dude, I'm cool with that. His hands are insane. He shields the ball from the defenders on the catch. He's got really secure hands. He tucks it into his body, and he contested catches. Like he can go up and jump over you and catch a ball in the end zone.
Right.
So I mean, he's one of one. I don't have a comp for him.
You don't have a comp for him?
No.
The comp that I had for him was Devontae Smith. I saw a lot of Devontae Smith in his game. Working in the slot. I mean, he was everywhere. But I don't know. Devontae Smith was mine. The fits I had, and I'm going to be honest with you, like I didn't go past probably like the first 5 picks just because he's so dynamic of a talent on both sides of the ball. I would be shocked if he goes past like pick 5.
Yeah.
If he's past pick 5, I'd be mind blown. But the biggest thing for him, of course, because this is a fantasy show and this is a dynasty show, who is going to put the onus on his wide receiver game? If someone is willing to do that, I will take him. I will draft him, and that's totally fine. But somebody has to show me, whatever team that is, that they want him for his receiving skills more so than his DB skills. So I put here, I had Jacksonville. I think he would pair great with Trevor Lawrence and Brian Thomas Jr. I had Tennessee. I think him in line in the slot could be dangerous. You know what I mean, and takes the pressure off of everybody else. My last one was Cleveland. I know Cleveland doesn't have a quarterback right now, but I think Cleveland's someone who needs a blue chip player, and what better blue chip player because he's a 2-for-1 special.
Oh yeah, he plays 2 positions. Did we forget about that?
Yeah,
right?
Oh
my god.
He's a blue chip player on the defensive side, and he's a blue chip player on the offensive side. But give me a fit for best fit for Travis Hunter.
I got 3. I'm not even going to mention the Packers because, again, he's not going to go outside the top 5. Why even sit here and fantasize about it? My 2 that are absolutely realistic possibilities, the New England Patriots. We were talking about this pre-show where, we need to know if he's going to play relevant receiver snaps in order to be willing to take him in fantasy, because at the end of the day, that's what this show is about. It's about fantasy football. We can sit here and drool over his talent all day, but is he going to be someone who's playing receiver in the NFL? And we talked about this a little bit. It's so dependent on where he goes. If he goes to the New England Patriots, I think they should be totally comfortable with saying, go play receiver. We have Christian Gonzalez. Obviously, it would be nice to have him and Christian Gonzalez playing corner.
Makes a lot of sense.
It would shut down a lot of good receiving cores. But they have that flexibility to let him go play receiver because, again, they have nobody. They need somebody. So I think the Pats give him the best opportunity to shine because that receiving room is filled with nobodies. And again, they're in a realistic spot to take him. My other one is the Giants, which, again, another team that we were talking about pre-show. The Giants aren't solid at corner. So I can sit here and say he would be sick next to Malik Neighbors, but they could also say, go play corner. We got Malik Neighbors already. So, I do think the Giants would be a great spot for him. But again, it's got to be because he's playing receiver.
Yeah. My last overall thoughts that I had for him was I'm going to be listening very carefully when he is drafted. Like when Roger Goodell steps up to the stage, is he going to say cornerback out of Colorado or is it wide receiver out of Colorado? That is going to be huge.
Yeah.
But watching his tape, someone has to have him play receiver. Like you can't. He's too dynamic that you can't not have him play receiver. Is he going to play enough meaningful receiver snaps though where he's worth drafting for fantasy? I don't know.
My hope for, I'll go back to the Giants real quick. My hope for, if he's so set on playing both positions, and I really want him to, I don't know how many teams are going to actually let him do that, especially in the NFL. My best case scenario, if he's going to play both positions and he's went into the combine as a defensive back, let's say Roger Goodell says defensive back out of Colorado in the draft. It is a situation where he's playing corner full time and he's playing maybe wide receiver 3 snaps. Like, he's out there enough. But again, like, I don't think if he's in that role, I'm not drafting him in fantasy.
Yeah.
Because he's just not going to do enough.
No, he's not.
But if you want him to play both positions, that's, like, in my mind, the best case scenario. He's your third wide receiver out there, and he plays, I don't know, 45% of the wide receiver snaps. Like, I don't even know what that math is in my head. I'm kind of just spitballing here, but I can't see him being your best corner and also being your wide receiver 1. I don't think that's a realistic scenario. Even though I really want it to be, I in the NFL,
there's limits to a human body, and Travis Hunter is definitely testing it.
He's not going to be 21 forever. Mm-hmm. Like, once you get those upper 20s, man, your knee's going to start hurting.
Right.
So.
Right. So those are all the slated wide receivers that we had listed. Wu and I have a couple of other ones that you want to keep the name in the back pocket. So this isn't like a full blown, profile of this person, but Wu, anyone that you want to highlight for the people at home?
Yep. I want to talk about the 2 Iowa State receivers, 2 guys that I want to, look into the film more. First one is Jaden Higgins. He's 6'4", 215. Massive guy. Both these guys had great combines, so that's why I even know about them.
I would just like to point out, stats are for nerds, but he had a RAS score of 9.92, which is insane.
Yeah, it's out of 10.
Out of 10.
So there you go. So Jaden Higgins, definitely someone I want to pay attention to. And then Jalen Knoll, 5'11", 200, a little bit smaller. But again, both these guys had 1,100 yards, pushing 1,200 on Iowa State. Like, not necessarily a massive football program. So, I mean, these are 2 guys I definitely want to pay attention to. I believe they both had over 80 catches as well, and they both had 9 and 8 touchdowns respectively.
Yeah, and one thing I just want to add to the Higgins wagon is that 2.9 yards per route run versus zone, 2.8 versus man. So, he is someone to definitely keep your eye out on. One person I want to highlight for the folks at home, is Alec Iomaner. He comes from Medicine Hat, Canada. But I just want to point out he's 6'2", 210, and he's only 21 years old. He had some decent stats at Stanford. He only played 2 seasons, but again, stats are for nerds. 9.67 RAS score out of 10, which is great, and he has a 4.4 speed, which is elite. One of the things that I am afraid of is his drops. He had 12 drops in 2024, but and he had a tough time separating. But he's a younger guy. He's a lot moldable. I comped him to Chris Godwin light in a way, but he's someone that you might want to keep an eye on.
I like that.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that is episode 11 of the Fourth and Fantasy podcast. I'm going to say it, Wu, because you say it all the time. I think we just keep getting better and better, man. This was a banger episode. Sure. Please, if you like this episode, make sure you're leaving us a like, follow, subscribe. Twitter at Fourth and Fantasy Pod, Instagram and TikTok at Fourth and Fantasy, YouTube at Fourth and Fantasy. Make sure you're showing us love, and we love giving the love.
Yeah, I have to check our calendar again, but we have our tight ends coming up next week. We also might have a bonus episode coming out.
Bonus.
But once we get through these rookie profiles, I believe we have a mock draft episode in our schedule somewhere. I don't know where it falls.
Yes.
But that's definitely something to be paying attention to, because we got rookie drafts coming out soon. People are going to start those in your league, so I think that'll be a fun episode.
The mocks are coming, baby. All right. Take care, ladies and gentlemen. We will see you on the other side.
See ya.